June 30th, 1956. A bright Saturday morning in Los Angeles. Hundreds of passengers are boarding two separate flights, unaware that fate has chosen this day to rewrite aviation history. At Los Angeles International Airport, TWA Flight 2, a Lockheed L-1049 Super Constellation named Star of the Seine, is preparing for takeoff. Moments later, United Airlines Flight 718, a Douglas DC-7 named Mainliner Vancouver, begins its journey as well. Both flights are bound for destinations across the United States. TWA heading toward Kansas City. United heading toward Chicago. 128 men, women, and children sit comfortably in their seats. Business travelers, vacationing families, young couples, and even two Catholic priests. No one imagines this would be the last flight of their lives. At 9 a.m., both planes lift off from the runway, climbing steadily into the clear Californian sky. Back in 1956, air travel was glamorous, but technology was primitive. There was no GPS, no live satellite tracking, and radar coverage ended just a few miles from the airport. Once the aircraft were above 21,000 feet, they entered what was known as uncontrolled airspace. Pilots relied on radio communication and visual sighting to stay clear of other aircraft. They were essentially flying blind, trusting their eyes, their instruments, and a little luck. As the flights moved eastward, the weather began to change. Clouds were forming over northern Arizona. TWA Flight 2's captain requested permission to climb to 21,000 feet on top of the clouds, to give passengers a smooth ride and a spectacular view of the Grand Canyon. United Flight 718, already cruising at 21,000 feet, was flying along a nearby route, just miles away. Controllers approved both routes. But what they didn't realize was that those two flight paths were about to cross each other, in the exact same airspace. At 10:30 a.m., 21,000 feet above the Grand Canyon, passengers were gazing out their windows, admiring the breathtaking landscape. Towering red cliffs, deep gorges, and the shimmering Colorado River below. Then, in the blink of an eye, two aircraft moving at over 500 miles per hour combined speed collided head-on. The United DC-7's left wing sliced through the fuselage of the TWA Constellation. A massive explosion erupted in the sky. Wings were torn apart, engines ripped free, and both planes began a fiery descent toward the canyon floor. Witnesses on the ground saw two smoke trails spiraling down from the heavens. Moments later, both aircraft slammed into the canyon, one at Chuar Butte, the other at Temple Butte. There were no survivors. All 128 lives were lost, making it the deadliest air disaster in history at that time. When the planes didn't arrive at their destinations, air traffic controllers grew concerned. Radar coverage was too limited to track them. By afternoon, both flights were declared missing. The U.S. Air Force launched a massive search operation over Arizona. Helicopters and rescue planes flew over the vast Grand Canyon area. And soon, smoke was spotted rising from deep within the canyon. When teams arrived, they were met with a horrific sight: twisted metal, scattered luggage, and unrecognizable remains spread across cliffs so steep that rescuers could barely reach them. The recovery effort lasted several days under scorching heat, with dangerous climbs and minimal equipment. In many cases, bodies had to be lifted out piece by piece. It was one of the most painful and difficult recovery missions in aviation history. News of the disaster spread like wildfire. Headlines across America screamed, 128 dead in Grand Canyon air collision. For the first time, the public realized that the skies above them weren't as safe as they seemed. Families gathered around radios and televisions, desperate for updates. But answers were slow to come. The tragedy shook the very foundation of the aviation industry. If two modern airliners could collide in broad daylight, how safe was air travel at all? The Civil Aeronautics Board, CAB, led the investigation. But reaching the crash sites was so dangerous that parts of the wreckage remained inaccessible for weeks. Investigators pieced together fragments, flight logs, and radio transcripts. They concluded that both aircraft had left their assigned airways while trying to fly above the storm clouds for better visibility. In doing so, they entered uncontrolled airspace and collided while maneuvering visually. It wasn't human recklessness, it was the system's failure. There were no radar networks, no traffic separation standards, and no centralized control for high-altitude flights. The tragedy revealed a harsh truth. Aviation had outgrown its infrastructure. The disaster outraged the American public. How could such a tragedy occur in peacetime skies? The answer sparked one of the biggest overhauls in U.S. history. In 1958, just 2 years after the crash, Congress created the Federal Aviation Agency, known today as the FAA. It unified air traffic control across the country, introduced modern radar systems, and established strict separation rules for aircraft. This single disaster led to the birth of modern air safety. Every pilot communication, every radar sweep, every controlled air route, all trace back to what happened over the Grand Canyon that day. Today, more than 6 decades later, wreckage from both planes still rests deep within the canyon. A memorial plaque stands at the Grand Canyon's south rim, a silent reminder of the 128 souls who lost their lives so that others could fly safely. Families still visit the site, some carrying photographs, others just standing quietly, looking over the same sky where 2 planes once crossed paths. The canyon, vast and eternal, holds their story in its silence. The Grand Canyon collision was not just an accident. It was a turning point, a tragedy that forced humanity to look up and ask, how safe are our skies? It's because of them, the passengers of TWA Flight 2 and United Flight 718, that millions of people can fly today with confidence. Their story reminds us that every advance in safety is written in the memory of those who never made it home. If this story moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe to Skyline Tragedies. We bring you the untold stories behind aviation's darkest moments. Because every tragedy leaves behind lessons and echoes in the sky forever.